Hello, I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to I Hate Rock Music. And I'm doing a redo of a video I did about the idea of Wayne Kramer from the MC5 joining Motorhead. And this is an established fact. Lucas Fox, the first drummer in Motorhead, has confirmed this. And also, it was an article I read in Circus Magazine right after Lemmy got kicked out of Hawkwind. There was an article that appeared in Circus Magazine, and he talked about the fact that he wanted to form a new band, and that he said that he wanted to eclipse Hawkwind, and they didn't know what heavy metal was, so he was going to form what he thought was going to be the heaviest band in the world. And in the article, he talked about he wanted to get Larry Wallace and Wayne Kramer. And so I think it probably would have happened if Wayne Kramer hadn't had legal problems and was put in prison in 1975, the very year that Motorhead formed. And so, of course, Lemmy went ahead and got Larry Wallace and Lucas Fox as the first drummer and guitar player in Motorhead, and the rest is history. But part of this history is the fact that I really think that Wayne Kramer probably would have joined had he been able to, because he was known to join interesting projects that didn't necessarily seem to be a good fit with him. One was joining Johnny Thunders from the New York Dolls and the Heartbreakers in a band called Gang War. And so I think he would have been very open to the idea of joining Motorhead. He and Lemmy obviously were pals. And Lemmy, of course, greatly admired the MC5. And in fact, MC5 played with the Pink Fairies and Hawkwind in Cambridge in 1972. So they probably met on a number of occasions. And the other part of this is, of course, Lemmy thinking about having two guitars in the band, in this case, Larry Wallace and Wayne Kramer. I think it would have been a really good fit because when I listened to the very first Motorhead album and I hear Fast Eddie Clarke and his playing, it definitely is in line with all the kind of things Wayne Kramer would do. The solos are very reminiscent of things Wayne Kramer would do. The rhythm playing, a lot of standard rock and roll chords, as it were, and considering the direction that Motorhead started out in, it's really easy to imagine him being in Motorhead. And I would also add too that it's interesting too that apparently they also considered Luther Grosvenor, who used to be in Spooky Tooth, and more recently Mott the Hoople. And when you hear the Mott the Hoople live records with Luther Grosvenor on them, he put up a pretty good wall of sound. And he ended up being in another English hard rock band called Widowmaker that was relatively unremarkable. But Luther Grosvenor would have also been a good addition. And then the story goes, too, that when Lemmy put together Motorhead and originally had Lucas Fox on drums and Larry Wallace on guitar, they basically met Fast Eddie Clarke, and Eddie Clarke was added to the band. So once again, they were a two-guitar band with Eddie Clarke and Larry Wallace. And then Larry Wallace apparently wasn't comfortable with that for whatever reason, and he left. And so we came up with the classic Motorhead lineup that we have now, or what we had. Filthy Animal Taylor on drums and Fast Eddie Clarke on guitar. And so, but as per the title of this video in this series, I still dream about the idea of Wayne Kramer being in Motorhead. I think he would have been a great fit. He would have been, the riffs were perfect for him, the kind of leads and riffs that the early Motorhead had. He would have been great with. And another component of that as well is the famous first Motorhead album, On Parole, that was produced by Fritz Fryer and wasn't released until years later, with the Larry Wallace lineup. And for most of my life, I always thought those were just demos. But apparently they considered that a finished record, and they were disappointed it didn't come out. And I'm really kind of surprised because Larry Wallace's guitar work, for the most part, is pretty subdued on that record, and he uses a pretty dry tone. not what I would expect from Larry Walsh from the Pink Fairies or UFO. And so that's pretty surprising to find out that they considered that a finished record, because it does sound like demos. But it also demonstrates that, at least at that point with Larry Wallace, having a second guitar player probably would have been a good thing. And I think Wayne Kramer would have been a great fit. And it's too bad it didn't happen, because if Wayne Kramer hadn't been in prison, he probably would have done it. And we would have a record with Larry Wallace and Wayne Kramer together. And that's something. Thank you for watching. I'm Brian Fox. This is I Hate Rock Music.